Look, I think F1 are out of excuses for saying no to Andretti. Okay, there's a couple of articles that came out today that have upset me somewhat. Is upset the word? Look, it's frustrating, okay? Andretti is a name synonymous with not just F1, but motorsport more generally. Motorsport more generally over recent years, but obviously Mario Andretti, 1980 world champion. Come on now. Like, this is a huge name in motorsport. And when they registered and put out into the world their interest, sure, they bruised a few egos on the way, but ultimately it looks like they put a pretty compelling case together, right? So big up Luke Smith from The Athletic. Great guy, Luke. Why Andretti is not waiting for a green light to build its F1 team. We finally have some imagery, all right? This is from the Cologne wind tunnel. I'm assuming this is the wind tunnel that McLaren used to use, because they used to use the Toyota wind tunnel in Cologne. But yeah, basically, they're already well on it. They're already well on it, according to this article. Time is always of the essence in F1. Michael Andretti. Now, obviously, Michael is the one who has stirred the pot somewhat. Okay, Mario is the one with the historic name. Michael did a bit of F1 back in the early 90s, didn't he? Didn't go particularly well for him alongside, what was it, Mika Hakkinen, wasn't it, at McLaren back in day. But it sounds like they're well on the way, okay? So they've already got this little satellite base, which we've talked about on this channel before, satellite base in the UK, engineering base. It's at Silverstone, apparently. That's where they're getting things up and running from a technical point of view. And they've brought in a bunch of people. So Nick Chester has joined. Also, is it John Tomlinson? I believe they're both from Renault. Did a little bit of reading up beforehand. Senior technical staff. But I mean, they're talking about from teams, where is it? Yeah, Red Bull, Ferrari, Mercedes, and McLaren. Like, they've hired a lot of people. It's like 120 strong from a technical point of view. Now, you know, they're acting as if, which says in this image, and Andretti's preparing as if they'll be on the grid in 2026, which I guess they've their hand's been forced into doing this level of kind of pre-active work before their entry is even approved, right? Because it's far from approved, okay? There's also talk in this how the GM has been working quite closely, because there was a concern that the GM stuff with Cadillac was a bit of a badging exercise and nothing more than that, and that's something some of the other teams mentioned in terms of their disapproval towards this. But it appears that it's been quite significant. Andretti's been leaning quite heavily on GM's technical support. Around 50 GM engineers included in the team's 120 are directly coming from GM. And it's kind of been balanced between Silverstone and their Charlotte, North Carolina base, which, I mean, look, Haas have a base in North Carolina that they just don't use. So it seems like Andretti are already getting more use out of their North Carolina base than Haas are, right? And I guess that's where a lot of it comes to me, because there's all this talk around prize money and the teams being anti, dilution, blah, 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 right? But then another article comes out today. F1 owner Liberty Media tops list of world's most expensive sporting empires. Like, what's this about? Like, you can't, in one way, right? And this isn't cash rich, of course, right? This is asset rich. Okay, Liberty Media are asset rich. I'm sure they've got a bit of cash in the bank, right? But you can't sit here and say that money is really an issue when we're racing down the strip in Vegas, we're setting up a Madrid Grand Prix, you're registering a trademark for the Chicago Grand Prix. Like, come on. Let's not take us fans for mugs, okay? Liberty Media could make this happen if they really wanted to. Because of course the teams are going to object. And also, that part of me is kind of, I don't blame the teams for objecting, because if you're a team boss, your responsibility is not to the greater good of the sport. Not really, is it? It's to your team. Your responsibility shouldn't be to the greater good of the sport, okay? Because I think that's how you get the best quality performance out of people. You have the correct team principles, controlling the correct teams, and managing them in a way that gets the most from that asset, gets the most value from that asset. it frustrates me seeing this article, and you see about anti-dilution fee and teams, blah, 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 right? $18.22 billion, okay? Liberty Media is worth. Again, this is asset wealth. This isn't, they've not got 18.22 billion in the bank, right? But asset wealth wise, they are swimming in it. And also Bernie's got a big tax bill, which is quite amusing because apparently he was dodging some taxes, which doesn't surprise me in the slightest, to be honest. Look, another one that James Vaz, and I'm a big fan of James, all right? I think James has made a lot of good points about a lot of things over the years, but one of his points, which he worded very articulately, but ultimately I do not agree, is that there is a limited supply of sponsors. Now, if you look at Andretti's IndyCar escapades, okay? DHL, it's the DHL car you might be familiar with. The Napa livery you might be familiar with as well. The Gamebridge driven by Colton Herta that you might be familiar with. Let's not pretend that Andretti are just going to come in and not bring any sponsors with them. Again, this is one of the most famous names in US motorsport, okay? Andretti is a huge player globally. Again, F1 connections going back. Let's not pretend that they wouldn't be able to bring some of these sponsors over with them, because you've got to tell me obviously F1 hasn't explored every single potential sponsor that could possibly exist in this sport, because look at how plastered these cars are in sponsors, okay? Andretti's huge. Andretti's huge in IndyCar. I think there are, maybe I'm wrong, right? If you're watching this video, you must be an F1 fan, but I'm sure a lot of IndyCar fans and a lot of US fans who are a bit more anti-F1, like their own motorsports, would be inclined to be somewhat interested in an Andretti entry into Formula One. I mean, we keep being told time and time again, and you know what? I agree, right? I agree. In the back end, I'm going to pull up some insights, right? I agree that the US fan base is very important. Of course it is. Look, I see it on my channel, okay? I see it on my channel. When I look at the demographics of you who are watching my stuff, I mean, what US is, where are we? Oh, interesting. So I've the last 28 days. Let's get up some numbers on screen, shall we, right? So in the last 28 days, my top demographic has been the UK, 21.8%. Closely followed by US, 18.7. If you put that these last 90 days, what are we looking at? US is actually ahead of UK in the last 90 days. So it's very touch and go. 20% of the people who watch this channel, of you wonderful people out there, are US based. I mean, it's huge, right? So you're saying that in one instance that this US fan base is super important, okay? And how the US consumer is one of the most valuable consumers on YouTube, because the cost per view for someone from the US is a lot higher than most other territories. So why are you... It just feels like this is so short-sighted, because actually I think everybody wins in the long term from a strong Andretti bid. Now, can I understand reluctance around bringing in a team for the sake of it that's struggling around at the bottom? Absolutely. Absolutely. The thing is, we've got a cost cap in place, okay? Which the point of the cost cap is to make F1 more accessible, more sustainable financially for the teams already in it, but also more accessible for brands to come in. And then we're getting Andretti wanting to come in with the backing of GM, Cadillac. We just had a Cadillac and a Porsche dicing it up at Daytona 24. And all of a sudden we're like, no, we've got Haas going along, right? Gene Haas, not prepared to invest any money, just wants to not finish last, basically. And it's enough for him. We're able to accept that, but then not bring on an entry that already, for me, is clearly more viable and arguably more serious of an entry than Haas, okay? Yes, Haas partnered with Ferrari, but they're a customer to Ferrari. That they literally buy stuff from Ferrari, and that is it, okay? And they utilize that as much as they can. Whereas Andretti GM is a genuine alliance. This is what I'm seeing from this. And don't get me wrong, right? This Athletic article, right, dropping as it has, for sure, is to get someone like me, okay, to talk about this in a very positive way. And you know what? Mario, all right? Mario, Michael, I've fallen for it, okay? Hook, line and sinker, you've got me. Because I'm on board with this, because I think it's for the good of the sport. And ultimately, right, there's so much talk about money and commercial viability. Ultimately, is this going to improve the Formula One product on a more long-term basis? Because we're seeing a Haas that, you know, we can dunk on Haas all we like. Hulkenberg got into Q3 8 times last season. Like, this generation of Formula One, top to bottom, is the most competitive it's ever been. The reason Max has dominated so much is because he's the best driver. He is also in the best car. And these cars are bulletproof reliability-wise, like they never were back in the day, okay? These cars don't break. They don't go wrong. And maybe there's, you know, teams should be allowed to up the RPM of their engines to put a bit more stress on them, to bring some unreliability back. Perhaps that's some kind of method. I don't know. But from what I'm seeing already, like, again, this is one article. I trust Luke. Luke's a great guy, right? And Andretti are going to say what they want to say to try and get this across the line, but they're already investing. They say 120 staff. They've already got a car in the wind tunnel. They've got established staff from numerous different teams. I'll link this article in the description down below. What do you think? Are F1 out of excuses? Because to me, there's no way they can say no. There's no way Liberty now can come in and say, you know what? Nah, sorry, it's not going to happen. In terms of year, honestly, right now, yeah, we're in the 2024 season. I think getting a car on track for 2025, I would like to see F1 accept Andretti to join F1 from 2026 onwards. I think that's a realistic, genuine ask. I don't think that's too much to ask. 2026 onwards, new regulations, you know, they've put this work in, okay? Andretti have put this work in, they've built these models, blah, blah, blah. But ultimately, the 2026 regulations, in terms from an aero point of view, are going to be a development on from what we have already. It's not going to be a complete waste of time, everything they've done to this point. So let them in from 2026. I want to see some Gamebridge, some DHL, some Napa on the grid. Make it happen. I think they're flat out of excuses, to be honest. And even the greed excuse doesn't really wash with me, because you're just thinking so short term, you know? What do you think? Let me know in the comments down below. My name's been Tommo. Thanks again. Have a good one. Ta-da.